We live in a world where your integrity is constantly on trial. Let me ask, how are you doing? Over the course of my years, I've had a couple of different instances where individuals have brought some false accusations for various reasons. And I think a lot of it has to do with what we find in the book of Job as we walk through this together. You see, why would someone bring a false accusation? I think it's because they want to highlight themselves and they use other people to get there. And that's exactly what we see happening in the book of Job. You see, one of the things I've learned about reading the Bible, one of the patterns I've seen is that whatever we read in the Bible is still happening today. The enemy is not creative. He doesn't use any new tools. It's just the same stuff over and over again. So just be aware that when you see false accusations, that really where it's coming from. Hey, we're building a community of believers who are more interested in studying Scripture and noticing the people, patterns, and prophecy of Scripture. But the question I have is, why 42 chapters? I mean, this is a long book for basically one long conversation between three friends of Job and Job himself, and then God enters later, and another friend enters a little bit later as well. But I think there's a couple reasons for this. And I think part of it, again, is because this is life. I mean, life is one long conversation with friends and family, and sometimes false accusations, and sometimes needing to grow and learn. And listen, I understand no one's perfect, right? I'm not perfect. We all have our little faults, our little issues and things like that. We all need people to speak into our life. But in Job's case, and hear me, when God brings this in, allows us to enter into the book of Job and his life, he's showing us a pattern for our own lives, that we're going to experience things that aren't always the kind of nice things that we like about being a follower of Jesus. You see, Job is wrestling. Now remember Genesis, we find the life of Jacob, and we see that he wrestled physically with an angel, or maybe even could have been the Lord himself. The book of Job is not a physical wrestling match. It's an emotional, a mental, even a spiritual wrestling match. Most of us in life, I'm not going to probably wrestle anybody else in my life. You may not as well, but we all will wrestle spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And that's, again, one of the reasons I think that God allows us to enter into this one man's life and this long conversation of 42 chapters to see this. You see, Job is really meant to shape our lives, not just inform us, right? It's to get into the inner part of our soul, if you will, and who we really are. And one of the things that happens is that he teaches us discernment. This is one of the big reasons for the book of Job is I need to learn to discern, between false theology and true theology. And we know in our world today, a lot of the stuff we see happening around us is misleading people, and we need to be more aware of what's true and what's false when it comes to theology. So it points back, this whole book points back to one issue in my mind, and that's Job's integrity. That's the reason for the accusations and all. And we see that in Revelation 13, again, we see it just continues on, that the idea that Satan himself is called the accuser. And so when we encounter someone who's bringing false accusations for their agenda versus to discover truth, we see that they're being used of the enemy in many ways, because the enemy's subtle, and and his job is to kill, steal, and destroy anybody and everything in his path. So we see that, again, this idea that Job is God's reminding us through Job's life, hey, be aware of this, right? Here's one thing that we often miss. Job's theology and integrity remains even when his emotions are going crazy. Have you ever been there? I have. Things are just bonkers, crazy, all out of control. But let your theology and your integrity remain intact. Here's a statement that Job makes that just is probably something you'll want to remember. He says this: I will maintain my integrity until I die. Wow, that's powerful. And then before I tell you the last real reason that I think that the book of Job, and I don't mean last like in the sense there's no others, but this is a big one. Do me a favor, hit the like button, and this will help YouTube know that, hey, people like these videos and they're helpful, and we want them to be helpful and put something good on YouTube to help people in their walk with Christ. Here's the big reason I think that we read the book of Job. It's a reminder that we're in a cosmic war. Go back to Job 1 and 2. Remember where Satan walks into God's living room and says, hey, I don't like Job. The only reason he likes you is because you always treat him nice. I bet you if we did these things to him, he wouldn't like you anymore. And God gives him permission. There's a war going on cosmically in the heavens, whatever you want to call it, and we're involved in it. And I think that God is saying through the book of Job, remember this, that things that happen, there's always something bigger behind it. And you realize this as we wrap this up. Accusation is the enemy's primary strategy. That's huge. Don't be surprised when you get accused falsely. Endurance is your spiritual warfare. That's where it happens. When you and I decide, I'm going to endure, that's spiritual warfare. And then trust without explanation, that's your victory. When you and I say trust in the midst, I don't understand it all, I don't get why it's happening, that's victory. So the book of Job teaches us that the greatest battles are often fought in silence, in our faith, and in perseverance. So slow down, expose shallow theology, maybe not with people, maybe in your own mind or your own heart, and then endure. Job teaches us the pattern when it comes to spiritual warfare and prophecy, foretelling us that Jesus secures the victory. So this is pointing all to Jesus in this, and that we grow in our trust without explanation. Hey, there's lots of other videos we have for you. Again, we're building a community. We'd love to have you join us. Thanks so much for being a part. Until next time.